Welcome back, Canonites. Issue 2 of Rise of Atriox has released, and overall, I'd say it was a pretty good read. When the cover and description for this issue were first revealed, my biggest concern was that it was just going to be a retelling of the Atriox backstory cutscene we saw in Halo Wars 2. Thankfully, that fear was entirely unfounded. Issue 1 got us off to a great start, and Issue 2 continues down that path. So, let's dive in and take a look. Issue 1 opens, interestingly enough, on the planet Algolis. This name should be familiar as it has appeared twice in prior fiction. First in Prototype from Halo Legends, and then in Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian from Halo Evolutions. The latter was basically a mention, the UNSC Heart of Midlothian deploying to drop in ODSTs to help the fight on the planet, but Prototype showed the actual ground battle as the planet was evacuated and a Prototype weapon destroyed. Given the appearance here, one can't help but wonder if this scene takes place right after the Battle of Algolis, or perhaps not too long after, the Covenant perhaps setting up a forward operating base of sorts on the planet. What's really interesting, however, is that the appearance of Algolis seems to confirm that this issue, and ultimately Atriox's rebellion, occurred late in the war. Though no longer on Waypoint, an old character profile for Michael Baird from Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian did confirm that Algolis was invaded late in the Covenant War. And this fits with what we see in Halo Wars 2's Phoenix logs. The first one to mention Atriox operating as an independent agent is set in 2550. While this sadly means that Regret's line about being left defenseless from Halo Wars 1 is definitely not in reference to the Banished, it is nice to narrow down the date range for Atriox's rebellion. Last thing I want to mention before we move on is that the Covenant base we see in this first panel is the same Covenant base type we see in Halo Wars 1, so that's pretty neat. Anyway, the comic opens with Atriox returning from battle, once again, alone. Inside the base, his fellow Geralhani praise Atriox's return. Watching from a holotable, the Sangheili known only as the Executioner finds himself worried about Atriox's continued survival. He contacts the Prophet of Truth and airs his grievances. Truth has the Executioner talk with Atriox, hoping to use the Geralhani as a tool to better control others of his kind. However, when the Executioner does talk to him, Atriox makes it very clear he has become disillusioned with the Covenant and with the Great Journey. When the Executioner reveals this to Truth, the High Prophet notes that they'll have to eliminate Atriox in a way that doesn't make him a martyr. And as a quick note, it's never actually stated that this Sanshayum is Truth, but he's definitely wearing Truth's crown, or a crown identical to it, so yeah. Anyway, we flash forward to Atriox's next mission. The brutes around him are excited to be fighting with Atriox, seemingly seeing his presence as an omen of success and the greatness of the Covenant. But one brute remains silent, staring Atriox down. Once the battle commences, Atriox and his clan take down dozens of Marines, invading a UNSC outpost. Parts of what seem to be the Writ of Union or something close to it, seemingly narrating the action. One thing that does somewhat bother me during this scene, which, don't get me wrong, is awesome as hell and absolutely beautiful, is that the Marines are once again using Halo Wars /H2A BDUs. Since this would seem to be later on in the war, I would personally have preferred to see straight up Halo 3 BDUs or maybe a Reach BDU. It's a minor issue overall, however. Anyway, Atriox finds one survival after the massacre, telling him to run while Atriox slowly pursues, himself pursued by the brute that we saw staring him down earlier. Atriox catches up to the Marine, voicing his frustration with the war with humanity as he kills the poor guy. Behind him, the other brute appears. This brute has been sent by the Executioner to take out Atriox. Having heard Atriox's blasphemous statements, he's ready to kill. Atriox, as we should know, wins. Atriox then returns to confront the Executioner, throwing down his hammer, just as we see in the Halo Wars 2 cutscene. While the other brute failed, the fact that Atriox killed him is used by the Sangheili to justify killing Atriox. Atriox killed his brother, stole from him the holiness of the Great Journey. This way, Truth and the Executioner can now have Atriox killed without making a martyr of him. And of course, we all know what happens from there. They try to kill Atriox and Atriox rebels, and his rebellion inspires others to follow. And that's the second issue. Overall, pretty darn good. Like issue 1, Atriox isn't really the main character, though we do get to see his perspective and thoughts. The main character, more or less, this time around was the Executioner, and the comic used him to shape the world that Atriox lived in and would soon rebel against. I love how these comics so far have chosen to teach us about Atriox not through Atriox himself, but through the perspective of others. I absolutely loved that it was only the last 4 or 5 pages that covered the Atriox backstory cutscene in Halo Wars 2, and even then it added a lot of context to those events. We really got to see how Atriox's legend had grown since the first issue, and just what that legend meant for his fellow Jiralhanae and to the Covenant. Other than criticisms I've already brought up, my only major issue with this comic was that we never really got to know anything about the Executioner. What was his actual rank and purpose? What was his name? Stuff like that. Still, a damn good issue, especially considering it had to, at least in part, retell something we were already familiar with. But that's it for this issue. The next issue follows Atriox and Decimus as they try to expand their tech and maintain a fleet while growing their new banished faction. And I genuinely can't wait to see what happens next. Thanks for watching as always, and until next time, this has been Halo Canon. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and sharing it around. You are the reason I get to keep doing this, so thank you, profusely thank you.